Welcome to Objection to the Form. This is Justin Humphreys. This week I've got Travis Beatty with me. Welcome.
Justin, thank you so much for having me.
We're going to shift gears a little bit this week, take a break from talking about law, and we're going to talk the real estate market in southeastern North Carolina. And I couldn't think of anybody better to have on than Travis. He's got a good handle for what's going on right now, and kind of he's an experienced agent and he's represented buyers, sellers, real estate investors. So I kind of wanted to have you on to tell the folks out there what's going on and what they need to know about the current market.
Well, it's a crazy market right now. If I would have, like I said, if you would have asked me what was going on back in March, I would have had a completely different, answer for you. It's just insane because basically in March I was looking at the stock market was crashing. We were basically going through this whole, beginning of this pandemic. So you just assumed, real estate would follow with the stock market. And it, obviously we took some hits there, and about early May, my phone started ringing, and it has not stopped ringing since May. I'm having clients, like I said, existing clients, past clients, but also an influx of new clients, basically relocating to our market from larger markets to try to basically get away from, just get away, because now they can work from home. They don't need to be in the office setting, and why not move to Wilmington? We got a desirable area to live at.
I think I remember talking to you in maybe it was a Friday, Black Friday, whatever it was, the day that Roy closed the bars, and it was St. Patrick's Day, from what I recall, and,
That's right.
And everything closed at 5 p.m. and it was sort of a surreal atmosphere to have, to kind of, with what you were talking about, the doom and gloom with the stock market and kind of the fear of COVID, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and I was worried myself. You didn't know whether the courts were going to be open from one day to the next, or the banks, and how was anything going to carry on? We didn't have a dip straight through April, but you could tell things had slowed down a moment. What type of people were you seeing in early May?
I was seeing a lot of buyers who had already set their minds to move to Wilmington, and because of the pandemic had moved their plans up because their boss or employer, whoever, said, we're not going to be in the office for the foreseeable future. You can work from home wherever, as long as you're within, driving distance to an international airport. It was kind of what a reoccurring theme I kept hearing. So you were seeing people up their plans. So they were already planning on moving here anyways. So why not, if they're going to be quarantined or sat in their house, why not be in a location where you wanted to be at full time?
So are many of your clients from outside the Wilmington market?
A lot of my clients are.
How do you go about establishing relationships with potential buyers or clients that aren't in this area?
With the power, with the internet, everything's changed with marketing. Majority of my leads, I'm marketing on Zillow, marketing on Realtor, marketing on any space I can. Just trying to kind of capture those leads, convert them in. So you're seeing that, and it's also just with CRM. I use a CRM tool that's amazing. I get my client and figure out what they're looking for, set up a listing alert for them, and kind of set it, periodically check in, see what they're looking at, and just kind of basically on there. A lot of buyers now, and a lot of agents probably going to disagree with me on this, but a lot of people don't have time to talk on the phone. And it's a text message, email, hey, let's get it done quickly type of conversation until you meet them in person. Then that whole that changes.
Yeah, certainly. And what I recall from that period of time, kind of late spring when it looked like things might be okay, was there was the sense of urgency behind everything. It might be the contract close date was another week or two out, but people wanted it done that second because nobody knew whether the register of deeds was going to be open the next day, or when was the next outbreak going to happen. And we want to make sure we get, if it's humanly possible to complete the transaction, let's go now. And that seems to have, there's that sentiment still out there right now, but I think the urgency has sort of has lessened a little bit, kind of out of a necessity a little bit, with just it seems like everybody's backed up that I deal with. Right?
Yeah, and to bring on that, the uncertainty, you had Fannie and Freddie changing guidelines up, not telling the servicers or the lenders what was going on, and it was changing. I'm sure you saw that too. It was guidelines were changing, not only weekly, it was almost by the day, by the hour. So you had buyers that were already in a contract when everything kind of came in. And it was just kind of a limbo period there because nobody knew what was going on. People kind of pumped the brakes and then just didn't. It was just kind of a lot of uncertainty those times.
A lot of times when I do closings with folks, we'll go through a loan package, and I frequently hear, "Well, this is a lot more paperwork than I had to sign last time I bought a house." And what I was telling them is the paperwork always grows; it never lessens. And the reason for that is the lenders tend to draft a form for everything that's ever happened. And so it's like if you get an instance where, for example, they're typically have 3 to 4 COVID forms now, where you say your income has remained the same or hasn't been affected because of COVID, but then you got another form that says your income's still the same as when you applied for the loan. So it's just so redundant. But I guess
what's that term? The bureaucracy expanding to accommodate the expanding bureaucracy.
Yes, I think that's exactly what's going on. Well, and it must be frustrating, I guess, from an agent's perspective, because you can you're really creating the deal, but then you kind of step back for a moment, and there's so many things that are out of your control, almost to an extent. Like if the bank doesn't get it done, or if title work is wrong, or if there's repairs that a building inspector identifies some repairs. What do you do to try to handle that situation or to manage those conflicts?
You try to prepare, so you want to see the landmines before you step on them, and you want to. If you've done it enough times, you'll see the same reoccurring things that happen with these deals that fall through or things that are going to get brought up. So you want to prepare both your clients for whether you're dealing with the seller, the buyer, whoever. What's going to be the next step? Hey, this is what we need to look out for. Be prepared for this. Plan for this. So that's, in my opinion, that's the best when you find an agent. You want an agent who's got experience, but the good agent looks for the landmines before you step on them.
Do you find that the landmines change over time? Like that at one point, maybe inspections were the landmine, and then, you figure out how to deal with that. And then it turns to another issue that frequently it interrupts deals.
Yeah. A lot of times, and again, it depends on the market. Right now, it's just it's a seller's market. So you're seeing a lot less impetus put on the home inspection reports. You're seeing a lot more things, not like 3-4 years ago, you might have a laundry list of inspection items. Now it's, hey, here's the major thing. Can we get a credit for it? Let's move on from there. The landmines, I have a great team of lenders and everybody I work with. So I use lenders that I trust that's their side of the business. I don't mess with them. I tell lenders all the time, you get a call from me, it's not a good call, because I tell the lenders, I don't want to have to talk to you, and they don't want to talk to me either. But I try to keep everybody in their lane. That's their business, and my business is to basically coach my clients on how to get the deal closed and how to get them their home.
How long have you been doing real estate in this area?
I got my license in 2013, so I've been full-time agent since 2013. And
was that time? I know the real estate crash, for me, it seems I perceived it to kind of happen in 2007 through maybe 2010. Had the recovery started by the time you got into it?
So we're a smaller market. So the recovery already had been going on in larger markets around the country. The smaller markets, it took a while for that to trickle down to us. So when I got in the market, when I got in my license, I believe there was, I think 1 in 3 listings in our MLS was distressed, whether it be a foreclosure, short sale, REO, along those lines. So I kind of cut my teeth doing a lot of foreclosures and just distressed property sales, because that's kind of the only business that was out there.
And so, are you talking about bidding at the courthouse? Or are you talking about buying listings where there's a foreclosure pending that they're trying to sell before it happens?
I did all of it. So I did HUD homes where I was having to chase down buyers and make sure they signed it in blue ink, because if you didn't sign anything but blue ink, they kicked it back to you and you had to start the whole process over. And I was going out of the courthouse and bidding for investors, bidding for myself. I did a lot of that. And then REO properties, real estate owned. So that was just that property that already gone through the process and kicked back to the lenders and who were listing it through, Fannie. And
the blue ink thing is kind of the story or part of the thing with the logo. It's the blue ink pen. It's, and I've had people, like, one of the things we do is we always give people pens with, it's kind of it's kind of a commemorative thing, or it's marketing on our behalf. But I'll have people, especially during COVID, like, well, here you go, here's your pen. Like, no, I'm good. I'm not touching that. It's like, well, okay. Like, I got my own pen. It's like, awesome. Is it blue? And no, it's black. But I'm just gonna use that. It's like, you can't
use it.
No, I'm not using it. It's like, look, it's a brand new pen. I'll get you some sanitizer. You can do whatever you got to do with the pen.
Boiling water for you.
Yeah, but we just can't use the black pen.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of using blue if at all possible, if you can use it.
So, I mean, you say you started kind of dealing with the distressed properties. How long was it before kind of things corrected themselves in this area and the distressed properties weren't, and that was no longer kind of a big thing?
I started seeing, I mean, again, it was turning around when that's one of the main reasons I got my license. I saw the market just starting to turn around, and I just graduated from UNCW, so I wanted to stick around the area. So there was signs of recovery. It wasn't probably till 2014, 2015, you started seeing more people, more general buyers get in the market, because you got to remember too, all the Dodd-Frank and all the lending stuff that came in. It became really difficult for buyers to purchase. So a lot of people just didn't qualify. So you had that issue, and it just didn't have the job market here to support it. So I started seeing turnaround about those times, and then it just kind of, I built my book of business. I cut my teeth with investors, and those investors referred me out to general brokerage buyers and along those lines. So I always had a good book of business from my investors, and I still do.
So when you talk about investors, are you talking about people that identify properties to buy typically for rentals, or is it flipping, or how would you classify as an investor?
All of that. And right now you're seeing more investors chasing cash flow. They're looking for rental properties. I am too. I'm doing the same thing, trying to get renters in there, get the cash flow, get the appreciation. But when I first got into it, was a lot more. Well, it's still a lot more. I just don't have time to deal with it. The house flipping. There's a lot more of those investors who are doing it. And my guys, a lot of guys I use now a lot of my investors, they stopped really doing the house flipping. Well, one thing, the material costs right now are outrageous, and there's so much competition in our market right now for flipping properties. So it's for them, they're not going to spend $200,000 and maybe get $20,000 back. So the return's not there for a lot of my guys, and they've already made their money on it too. So,
well, especially with investment or with renters, I imagine right now, if you can get locked into a long-term loan at a like sub 3% interest rate, it's kind of a no-brainer to do that, because the property's just going to pay for itself, assuming that your tenants don't tear it up.
Yeah, and you also your write-offs, you're seeing the rents in this town too, and I'm for better or worse are getting higher and higher. As more people want to move here. Just supply and demand. We don't have the supply, and everybody's complaining about apartments. I'm like, well, if you want cheaper rent, that's how you get the rent down by increasing the supply of apartments.
Yeah.
But the demand has been so great that you're still seeing the rents rise.
Yeah, it's amazing. You keep seeing these huge complexes go up, and kind of from my perspective, I look at it like who's going to live there? Where are these people coming from? But I guess there's a major influx of people coming to this area.
Yeah, it's this working from home. You're seeing people from all over the country relocate here, and I'm seeing a lot more people from the West Coast relocate here. I've told this story a number of times. The last 8 or 9, some good buyers down in Carolina Beach have all been from California.
It's one beach, so I mean, I guess it's probably a lot cheaper.
You're seeing a lot of people from the West Coast relocate here. And I've had a number of people stay in my Airbnbs, all from California.
No fires?
No fires, low taxes, and we still got a beach here.
Yeah. Well, that's good information to know, and we're going to take our first break of the evening. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the seller's market concept that you were talking about. All right, we are back with Travis Beatty. We're talking about the seller's market and what's going on right now. And kind of the way I was conceptually thinking about it is I want to take it from two ends. One, kind of talk about what makes sense if you're a seller in this current market, because I guess it's your time to shine. It's your market. It's your time to it's a good time to sell if that's something that you see on the horizon for you. So, um, what kind of general advice would you have to somebody considering selling right now?
I tell my clients, look, get it clean, get your house clean, do the minor repairs because it's going to come up. You're going to have to deal with it one way or the other. Do the repairs that you know about, get that done. But the problem I'm running into too, though, sellers know it's a seller's market, but they automatically think they can get $100,000 more than their property's worth. So you run into that, and I always have to coach my sellers like, look, even if we do pull that unicorn buyer and we get $100,000 over your house that's asking for, we still have to go through an appraisal process, which 9 times out of 10 there's going to be a lender involved, and they're still not going to spot. The lender's going to have a checks and balances on that. It's called appraisal, and you can't just price a house as whatever you think it's worth.
Sure, and it may feel good to get a slam dunk offer, unicorn, or however you want to put it, way more than your house is worth. But then the person's paid like $200 due diligence, and maybe a couple $1,000s earnest money, and then you're sitting there with your house off the market for several months, sitting around waiting on an appraisal to come back that's not going to go in your favor, or that the buyer may change his mind and realize that maybe the euphoria of the offer wore off, and they're like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? This makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm saying I am asking for more due diligence money, and I'm putting more due diligence money down in my offers just to kind of get attention of the buyer or the seller, whatever, to show that if I'm working for the seller, I want the buyer to have some skin in the game as far as that goes. So if I'm working with,
well, from that initial pricing decision for the sellers, how are you trying to set the price? I mean, do you want it to ideally be where, like on the button where you think the appraisal is going to end up? Or are you looking to be a little bit under it to generate interest, or maybe a hair over because it's your market and it's inventory's low?
I go strictly on the comps. So I'll look at that and I'll sit down with the seller and show them, well, hey, look, this is what's sold in the neighborhood. We can go a little high. We can't go crazy. We can go a little high and see what happens. And right now you are seeing some, you're seeing some above asking offers going on out there. But you just look at the comps, see what's out there, see how, also taking back the comps, how quick they sold. So if they're selling in a day, some of these houses are probably underpriced. So you can maybe push the market a little bit, and get your seller, get your client a little bit better asking price.
So when you look at it, I've seen kind of situations where some people are listing properties for less than they're willing to accept for them. And I guess the strategy would be, I'm gonna undervalue my listing price and in hopes to create a bidding war for the property. Is that something that, do you think that's a good strategy?
I have personally never done that. I've been in situations where I thought the seller list agent had done that, but then come to find out he didn't. He just priced it, he priced accordingly, and just for whatever reason there was a flood of buyers on, because it was unique property or it was location, or maybe he just underestimated the demand out there. Now I have seen other agents intentionally do that too, but I tend to not do that, and there's it's a little bit of a risk sometimes because you get all this flood of activity in your property, but you may not get what you want.
Yeah, and it seems like there's just a fundamental issue of how are you going to offer something for sale and then not take your asking price.
I personally don't like bidding wars. I know some people will disagree with me. I think you price it right the first time and go from there. That's my opinion, my strategy.
Are you seeing these bidding wars or the competitive listings in all the markets across the board? What I mean by all the markets, like your entry level housing, your kind of traditional middle class home, and the luxury markets, or are certain markets more competitive than others?
It was even 2-3 years ago, that 250, that under 300 price point was really competitive. It was competitive. Now that market, I'm telling my clients, I can't even get sometimes in the door before there's an offer. So I'm telling some of my clients, hey, if you like this house, just go ahead and make an offer now, and then we'll try to get you, get in the running and see. So I'm seeing that, and you're also seeing the luxury market. I don't know if I just saw that they had closed, I think in November, 72 $2 million in homes over, I think, a million. I think there was 72 homes sold over $1 million
Is luxury in Wilmington considered over $1 million? Is that the threshold?
It's kind of what I think it's 800 to 800 up plus, but I'm seeing the demand. You're seeing the luxury demand. I think they've set records every single month, and I've sold 3 homes in that 800 to over 2 million range this year with buyers. So
yeah, and I imagine that's where you want to be, and especially if you got people that maybe what's luxury here in your Californias and New Yorks and New Jerseys, maybe just middle class homes. And
that's exactly right. And that's what's kind of pushing it, because you're dealing with a lot of out of state buyers. So if somebody in Los Angeles is looking at it, hey, I can walk to the beach and be under $600,000. That's unheard of in my market. So they just it's unfathomable for them. So they just jump on it. A lot of times I've had clients that haven't even seen the house, offer full price. Let's go for it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the level of detail that needs to be in a listing? Like, do you have a certain it's got to be professional photos, and you got to have a certain amount of photos and information?
I do professional photos, drone photography when applicable. If you got waterfront property, you're obviously going to do drone. But that doesn't necessarily. Anytime you got a property that's unique, I always try to do drone shots. But try to do floor plans. Try to do as much as that's professionally as possible. So you want that done. In
the COVID era, are you seeing many people purchasing homes kind of sight unseen? I mean, they may have been there through a virtual tour or kind of a 3D tour, or having somebody show them on camera what the home looks like without stepping foot inside the home.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, and it's not necessarily because of fears of COVID. I think it's more just because they live in another market, they live in another city, so they want to jump on it, and they're making offers sight unseen. So FaceTime has been my friend through this whole thing, because I'm showing a lot of houses just through FaceTime.
It's got to be kind of difficult, I would imagine, and I know I'm not as technologically advanced with the phone, and I mean, I'm sure I know how to point and show things like that, but I mean, it seems like to me it'd be difficult to really capture what a home looks like through an Apple phone.
It's you think so, but I think you can get a good feel of the house walking through it. It's better than pictures. So if you're going to make an offer on something, a lot of times if you can get FaceTime in there and do a video walkthrough with your clients, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable making an offer versus just seeing pictures.
Yeah. What other items do you think are important to consider when evaluating the adequacy of an offer besides just the amount, the purchase price?
I think you got to take into effect like what your client is, what your client's looking for. If this house, I tell my client, like, this house may be a little overpriced, but it hits every single one of your check box, and there's, this is what you're looking for, bring your strongest offer you can, because this house might not be available tomorrow. So it comes into an emotional factor, and also a little bit of financial comes in too. I've got clients that are first time home buyers. I've also got clients that have bought 20, 30 homes in their lifetime, and they have accumulated wealth. So I try to kind of help, depending on their financial standpoint, it really does depend on their offer and what I feel comfortable kind of recommending to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what I was thinking about was when you're considering the adequacy of an offer and deciding whether you should take it, besides just the bottom line number, are there things that you kind of coach your clients to look for when they're deciding which one to accept?
I think the due diligence money's big. Obviously, cash is king. You don't have to deal with appraisals. You don't have to deal with a lender. So the cash offers usually are the first in the running, and then you kind of go down the list from there, and then kind of put your offers there. Now, if cash offer comes in $100,000 less, you're definitely going to entertain the finance offer to see what we got. But due diligence, short due diligence period, which again we'll talk about that too. You can't necessarily, used to be, hey, if you're offering full price, give me the shortest due diligence period as possible to do that. But now it's out of the buyer's hands, because we're so, lenders, attorneys, everybody's so busy right now. It's tough to close in that period of time.
Yeah, and so with first of all, I guess due diligence, it's kind of two separate concepts. One is your due diligence fee, which I guess is essentially a non-refundable fee that you're paying, that the buyer's paying the seller for taking the home off the market, for the opportunity to inspect. For a while it seemed like it was almost poor form to really even want much of a due diligence fee because people thought it was sketchy or what's wrong with this place. But then I think over time, a lot of people were just going around maybe putting multiple houses under contract and trying to sort it out and kind of see which one they were going to go with. And it was really, people were losing out on months of interest or having plans ruined to move to their next place. And I think that it's now become, it's acceptable to require a higher due diligence fee.
When I started, I was putting in offers. I wasn't even putting down due diligence fees. And I was getting offers accepted that way. I did a deal this actually before COVID. It was an oceanfront house where there was, I think at last count, there was 15 offers on it. And I came to my buyers. I just said, look, if do you want this house? I said, yeah. Okay. What is the most amount of money you're willing to walk away from if we find out this house is falling down on its pilings or whatever? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, bring me whatever money you feel comfortable you walk away from. So he came up with $10,000 figure. So he put down that $10,000 due diligence, and we ended up winning the house because of that.
Yeah.
Because as a seller, you're looking at it, you're like, well, everybody else has got $700. One guy's got $1,000, and then here's $10,000 that covers my nut and some through. I can carry that through. So it stands out, especially that shows the seller you're very serious on this property, and you're probably not likely to back out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then kind of we were talking a little bit about what you were or about the other end of due diligence, which is the time that you have to inspect, essentially before your earnest money goes hard. So you got your due diligence, non-refundable, earnest money, refundable as long as it's within your due diligence period or your inspection period. But in that analysis, you might there might be a certain thought process of I need to be competitive. I'll shorten my due diligence period. But you can end up kind of putting yourself in a bad position, especially in this market, because it's hard to get vendors on board right now in a timely fashion.
That's right. And it used to be like right now the market's it's crazy, but it used to be your short due diligence period was a negotiation tactic. Hey, I can get her due diligence done in 10 days. That was big for the seller because he's like, okay, then we move on to earnest period and then we go to close. Now, especially if you're financing an offer, it's very difficult to get everything you need done in that period of time. I've been doing 25 days, even 30 days for some due diligence because it's the appraisals and the lenders and all that. They're so backed up right now. It's just they can't keep up.
Yeah. So do you tell people if somebody says, all right, I'm going to go apply for a loan today, how long should that person expect it to take before they're in a position to close on a property?
Are you talking about like it's like getting pre-approved or
no?
that?
I'm talking about like you've identified the property now,
okay,
and you've submitted your contract to the lender, and you say this is the one I'm gonna purchase.
There's still I work with some great lenders. Shout out to Cortland Parnell at Town Bank Mortgage, and he tries to get me to give as much due diligence period as much as possible, but I can typically close a loan with him in 45 days or less. It's kind of buyer dependent too. Yeah. The buyer has to get all the documents to the underwriter. The whole process and how that works. And if the buyer's cooperating, he can close it as quick as 30, but he likes to have 45 days for that buffer.
Yeah, and Cortland does well, and I think it's important to have established relationships with lenders that you work with. We've got a friend of the show, Ben Hawkins, and he's somebody that I'd recommend as well with the Lend with Ben team. But there's a lot of good folks, and I think one of the important things
Ben does a good job, man.
Yeah, that does a good job is local. I think local's the key. You get a lot of folks that are just kind of they're just accustomed. Maybe you bank at PNC or you bank at nothing wrong with PNC in particular, but you bank at like a nationwide chain, and the thought process is, well, I'll just go with them. But you don't have the convenience and the reliability of somebody that's local.
Yeah, big banks they tend to they're just a juggernaut. It's like trying to steer a battleship sometimes, especially Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They just don't have the flexibility a lot of times to do it. So I try to stick with local mortgage brokers at much as possible. Again, there's some great people, Wells Fargo too. Not trying to disparage.
There's a lot of good folks to work with. So I think we ran over a little bit. So we're going to take a quick break, and we come back, maybe get a little bit into some of the local investment market and kind of some tips for folks looking to become a real estate investor. All right, we're back. Objection to the form with Travis Beatty this week. Got a little Tupac going. Talking real estate investment. And one of the areas that's kind of it's interesting to me is the Airbnb market. And I don't know how involved with that you are, but it's kind of, for me, from a legal perspective, it's fascinating to monitor because, we've got this court battle with the city of Wilmington about the I guess the regime, you want to call it, or their law of how they were going to try to handle and cap Airbnb rentals or short-term rentals in general, not just Airbnb. How are you advising your folks to you advise them to tread lightly in the wake of this government oppression, or what do you think?
I'm biased. I own 5 Airbnbs, so I think the local city council, there's some great people on there. I think they kind of overstepped their boundaries, in my personal opinion on it. They basically, and your attorney, you can agree with this. I believe it's basically taking without compensation. They basically took away people's property rights, and that kind of affects everybody in this city.
I don't know if I think if it's a taking. There's kind of some. For it to be a regulatory taking, you're looking at stripping the economically viable use of a property, which the fact that it can't be a short-term rental. I don't necessarily see that as a taking. However, I do think it's an unreasonable, just kind of a arbitrary and capricious, I guess would be the legal term, of a regulation, and then to say, well, sorry, your neighbor's got a short-term rental, so you can't have one. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, what's the point of the prohibition? Is it that short-term renters are inherently bad for our community? I don't know if that's why it needs to be, or is the thought process behind this we're trying to protect the hotels?
I'd like to know, because I've heard a lot of anecdotal stories about Airbnb's guests, terrorizing the neighborhood, but I have not seen any police reports. I've not seen, again, this is going back, I think we went through this for 2.5, 3 years through the city, studying everything and going to these subcommittees and committees. And so it just kind of went on. And I believe the city had already made the mind up of what they were going to do, and they just had to go through the motions. I don't know what's pushing it. We can all speculate, but
yeah. Well, I'd say shout out to Judge Harrell, one of our great Superior Court judges, for striking that down, and that's something we'll certainly follow throughout the Court of Appeals, and who knows, maybe it'll make it to the North Carolina Supreme Court. But I think he certainly did the right thing, and it was a well-reasoned decision. And also thank the Schroeders. Schroeders or Schraders, I'm not sure how they pronounce their name, but they're the ones that brought the lawsuit with I think the Institute of Justice. Sounds like a sounds like a superhero. That's what league. They did. I dabbled in Airbnb one time, and my wife and I were going on vacation that weekend when the Wells Fargo was over at Eagle Point, and it was also graduation weekend at UNCW. And we had a trip planned, and we were going to be gone. And I was thinking, well, I'd heard that demand was really high for housing, and there weren't enough all the hotels were booked, and that everybody's going to Airbnb. So I made a listing that didn't even end up renting it out. We ended up getting kind of late, and we didn't want to clean everything up and put up valuables and that sort of thing. We ended up not renting it. But I didn't know how to take my listing down. And so I just kind of every once in a while I'd get an inquiry, and I'd say, sorry, we're not listing it. And I would kind of black out my calendar for 6 months, and I wouldn't do anything. Well, the next thing I know, I got a letter from the city of Wilmington, and they said, look, you can't do this, and you've got till noon tomorrow or something like that to remove your listing, or else we're going to fine you an absurd amount per day. And I was kind of thinking, this is unreal. Why do they care if I rent my house out if I'm gone for a weekend or a week or something of that nature? I completely agree with you. If I want to rent my property out for 2 nights or 2 years, I think that's my prerogative. But again, there's a lot of people that might disagree with that, but I'm more, I like freedom and liberty. Yeah. So when you're looking at investing in the Airbnb kind of situation, I guess that's, I guess what I'd imagine you would tell your folks, look, this is what's going on. It could go a multitude of ways, but you just need to be aware of the situation. Well, what I tip, the city has put you can go on the city's website, the Airbnb map, and it's got a GIS map coordinate. So it's got every single bed and breakfast, homestay, whole house Airbnb. So that's kind of my first go-to see,
because it's the 400-foot separation between whole house rentals is the main target there. So you kind of want to put the address in there, figure out where everything's at, and figure out if you can actually operate a whole house rental there. Because right now, as it stands, it's, the city still can continue to find people, or you have to register your property to do that. So that's the first step. And then obviously location, just people don't want to, they don't want to live, be in a suburb where they can't walk anywhere. So that's why downtown and obviously Wrightsville Beach and Carolina Beach is very popular. But it mainly falls in, the regulation. A lot of people get confused is dealing with the city limits. It has nothing to do with the county or Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, so forth. It has to do with the city of Wilmington.
Is Wilmington the only one that's in kind of our area that's taken a hyper aggressive approach to short term rentals?
Yeah, the county has been kind of laissez-faire with it. Like they want their tax revenue. From what I've gathered just through the grapevine and what I've heard, I haven't heard anything about them regulating or bringing any regulations in. And I think now a lot of these, not just not just other towns, but other places are stepping back and seeing what's going on in Wilmington, this lawsuit, and are kind of waiting to see what comes out of it. But Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, they've always had vacation rentals going back time immemorial. So it'd be very difficult, I think, for them to kind of switch up and say you can't do short-term rentals here.
Yeah. I mean, especially a lot of these beach communities, that's been a strategy for quite some time. When you're in the beach rental market, do you think it makes sense to manage your own properties, or do you typically have your folks go with a rental agency?
It just depends on the people. It really kind of depends. I manage my own properties. I'm in real estate, so I got to take a different look at it. But I tell people, if you're pretty tech savvy and you're motivated and you can keep on top of things, and that you can manage these properties yourself. It's not difficult.
One question I thought was that I wanted to ask you was about the folks that are either managing their own properties or that are looking to flip, or however you want to put it, renovate, those sort of things. Do you think it's important to have sort of a mechanical background or the ability to do things yourself, or is it a viable strategy to buy properties and with the assumption being I've got some folks that are going to do the work for me?
You definitely need to have some sort of handyman. Being able to go over there and change a toilet out. That's just something that I think everybody needs to know. Or just do minor repairs, because the service calls, they do get. You think about it, if you have enough property, you start adding those up. You get a plumber through your door, it's $120 just to get through the door, and then you parts, material, time, labor. So these minor repairs, I think most people should be able to do. And when you're talking about framing up walls and complete renovations, and I don't expect everybody. I can't do that work.
Well, yeah, and I guess what I was asking is more of your situations where you're gonna construct substantial improvements, or you're really talking about doing a renovation, because it can be difficult to get contractors to do smaller jobs these days. A lot of times it's just like everybody else. A lot of the other professions related to real estate, there's not many. Or at least maybe you just need to know where to look. But it seems like it's difficult to find people that are interested in the minor fixer-upper job.
Yeah, you see that a lot. The contractors now are swamped like everybody. Now, if you're doing, again, I don't recommend anybody grab a hammer and start, knocking down walls and all that, because there's some skill there. You need to do it. So painting, that type of stuff, maybe laying some like LVP floors, yeah, no problem there. But I still recommend everybody get a contractor that they know and trust to do the legwork, unless that's their background. You are seeing contractors get into real estate, and which they've always been, but you're seeing a lot more of that now.
And one of the things I've always kind of questioned is, why is there this kind of instinct to spend a bunch of money fixing up a house before you sell it? And the reason why I say that is because, as a buyer, maybe I'd rather pick out my own paint or pick out my own upgrades rather than just deal with whatever the seller selected. But I guess there's a lot of people buying on loans, and I think that's probably part of the calculus is they don't want to, or some people don't want to deal with it when they move in. They want to have kind of a move-in ready product.
Yeah, it's different strokes for different folks. Some people want to, they want to kind of do that themselves. But we're going to get to HGTV in a little bit. Yeah. But if you're kind of seeing a very similar design, color scheme, palette that a lot of buyers are liking now. The open concept, white, chip lap, everything that. So if you can do that kind of minor kind of upgrades for buyers, your property becomes a lot more appealing on the market.
Well, it's funny. So yeah, we'll cut the break in just a moment. But yeah, you brought up HGTV, and it's just kind of blown me away that that's become a thing these days. People watching other people making housing selections, or it's like let's watch these folks. They're gonna flip that house or something like that, or the property. And I guess it can be entertaining just watching the whole process. I mean, I kind of grew up in the restaurant industry, and it's like, who'd have thought people would enjoy watching, dirty kitchens or things like that.
Gordon Ramsay's the best.
Yeah. Man. I love watching him lay into people. I was just thinking, dirty kitchens kind of, I've got a certain fear of those that because it's certainly not fun when you're involved in that. But yeah, let's take our last break, and then we'll talk about reality TV and HDTV and kind of how that's affecting things these days. So I know a lot of folks these days have Hulu or there's various subscription services where you can watch television shows. A few days ago, I stumbled upon Bargain Beachfront Hunter. Is that what it is?
It's Beachfront Bargain Hunters.
Beachfront Bargain Hunters. Season 12, episode 5 stars our guest of honor, Travis Beatty, and he's walking a very nice couple, Carrie and Ryan, through their decision of which beachfront property is right for them. And so my first question, I mean, it kind of amazes me that this is television, but it's, I guess there's some interesting stuff that happens behind the scenes in those situations. So how do you get selected to be on Beachfront Bargain Hunters?
Well, they sent out emails. I'm sure they probably sent out an email to everybody, every realtor on the East Coast, West Coast, wherever. So I just happened to see it, and I just sold this house to this awesome couple. They're still friends of mine. And I was like, look, this would be fun. Like, I emailed it to the wife, and I was like, Carrie, this would be fun. And she's like, yeah, I think so too. So she kind of was the driving behind it. Ryan was still a little skeptical, but we got on there. So we interviewed, just did a Skype interview, did that, kind of checked off their boxes. And so that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
But if they've already bought the property, why are they going to go on a show about which property to buy?
What was their motivation?
Well, I mean, but like, how is this show going to work if if the premise of the show is which property are we going to buy? How are they a candidate, or why would they be a good fit if they already bought their property?
Yeah, because it's TV, so they've already to go through the whole nobody wants to see sausage get made.
Yeah.
You don't want to go. You don't want to look at 15 homes that these people are never going to buy. So, the producer's probably looking like, well, we'll just find somebody who's already bought the home, and then we'll just put some filler in there and just say that's the other homes we're looking at.
See, I might be sick, but that's what I want to see, the sausage. I want to see that. I want to see you telling the people, look, we've already looked at 10 houses this week. I'm not taking you to any more. You're going to have to wait a couple weeks. I got other stuff going on. That's what I want to see. I would watch HGTV all day long to see that.
I think I think most Americans don't have I think versus production time, it's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah,
we're talking about shooting over a weekend versus shooting over several months. So I'm sure there's a lot of money in there. But hey, you might be able to pitch that to somebody. You might be able to have a TV show.
Yeah, my high budget. It's we're gonna need a little bit more time, but we're gonna take people behind the scenes. We're gonna show them kind of the do's and don'ts and what's going on. So with that, then I guess that goes back to the question that maybe I was asking originally. Why would Carrie and Ryan want to do that then if they've already gone through that process?
Well, I think it's just a cool thing to do. I think they were just fun to work with, and I told them, I was like, man, it would be cool to have show. Think about it. You can show your friends and family for the rest of your life. You've got basically a fully edited, produced show of you buying your first beach house. Yeah. So I was like, pitched it like that, and then of course it was fun.
Do they get paid for being on the show?
Yeah, it's a nominal. I can't even remember what they paid us. It wasn't a monetary factor. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So were the numbers real as far as the what they purchased the home for?
Yeah, it was. All those numbers, everything you saw, they were real. Just they had already moved in that the property they quote unquote chose had already been chosen. They lived there.
So your other options, I guess that I guess in essence was a rouge. Do you tell the sellers like look, we want to bring a crew in and pretend like we're gonna buy your house, but we're really not? Is that a hard sell to people,
no,
or do you even let them know that's what's going on?
And it was a very easy sell actually, and we told them they was getting exposure to their property, so it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah. So we're touring these beachfront homes, that, they were on the market. So they're already on the market to sell. So as a seller, I'd be like, it's brilliant. Yeah, sure. Bring your TV crew through here, film all you want and all that. But it was interesting because a lot of the sellers got a little frustrated because they kept being like, when it was the show? Because
it's exposure, but it's probably maybe your plan's not to have your house on the market for a year or for 6 months or however long it takes.
Well, it got pushed back. I can't remember why it got pushed back, but they ended up showing it. We filmed it in the fall and they didn't show it till like the next summer or something like that. Something happened. We got pushed back or whatever. But so it was, some of the sellers got a little frustrated with it.
I like seeing you're at the Tiki Bar or that bar at the pier or something?
One of my favorite bars, the Oceanfront Grill down Carolina Beach.
Yeah, that's a good spot. So when you're in there, one of the things that was frustrating for me watching the show was, it's like they're walking through each place, and then you're saying, all right, well, I'm gonna head out to the beach access. I'll see you in a minute.
That was my tagline, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that every time. I'm gonna head out to the beach access. Like, well, why aren't you going in there with them? Is that your go-to when you're showing a property? You say, all right, I'm gonna get out of your way and go to the beach access. You'll kind of have at it on your own, or?
Not necessarily. That was the producer came up with that idea because they wanted to get them alone.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of a segue in, and then I'll meet you at the beach access. I don't even know how that. I think the producer came up with that, but I still to this day get joked on from
I'll meet you at the
friends. Everybody. My brother to this day still jokes on me about it, but so. That that depends on the client. I've got some clients that want to be there all the time, and then you can I'm pretty good on reading people. So some people just don't want to be, I'll just let them go talk amongst themselves. A lot of times, like, hey, look, I'm going to go down, get upstairs, check some things out, check out the HVAC unit. You go tour the house yourself because sometimes people, especially they first meet you, they don't really want to show all their cards to you right the first time. They want to talk privately. So I'll let people do that.
Yeah, and then you're like devil's advocate, like, no, this house is perfect. We don't need to look at any more houses. Like, you just need to buy this. So, in the legal world, there's kind of a theory that people call the CSI effect. And that is that people have been watching CSI and all these crime shows, and, you're presenting a criminal case or something for them. And they're like, hold on. I can't say this guy's guilty. I need to see the DNA. I need to see, all this scientific, where are the shot patterns or the blood spray, or they need to see this, that, and other. Cause like, I know you can do that. I've seen it on CSI. Do you tend to have people to be like, Travis, I understand what you're saying about pricing, but I've been watching Flip That House for 2 years. I've been watching the Property Brothers, and look, I'm going to listen to what they say. All right. I know how this real estate thing works.
You do. When I was in my earlier in my career, I had a lot, for some reason, I don't know why I guess I just progressed now where I'm getting a lot of referrals from other people. So people, experience, trust me. But I had a lot more of that when I was starting off. I haven't experienced that as much. And it's funny. Every single buyer I had that, like you said, the CSI effect, they ended up hurting themselves in the long run. Or, they were like, oh, well, I'm using my own lender because I read somewhere in the line that you don't use any of the agents' referrals because they work in cahoots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I refer these people out because I trust them. I know they can get the job done, and I have a working relationship with them. And every single buyer that's done that has ended up in a worse position than they were if they just wouldn't have just trusted me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I tell people with those sort of things is like I always get there's probably 2% of the people I deal with in the sellers of real estate that'll give me no, I'm not going to sign the deed until I get my money. Like, well, it's not how it works. I can't disperse until it records. Like, no, you don't understand. This is like, well, no, what you don't understand is that I'm not allowed to do this, and I can assure you that I'm not going to take your deed, give it away, and not pay you. I'm not, I didn't go to law school and put all that time in to cheat you out of your proceeds.
I had a buyer that had similar to that. He's like, I need the deed for my records. I'm like, well, we'll mail it to you. It's all online too. He's like, no, I want the actual original deed to that. I'm like, I don't even know where to. So you gotta go down the court. I was like, they don't get those out anymore. It's not like back in the day where you had the deed to your house. If you lose it, you lost your property.
Well, some people will ask me, what legal television shows am I watching? And, my response typically, I don't watch that garbage. There's some rare exceptions. I love Boston Legal. I liked
Better Call Saul, a good one.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I hadn't seen as much of that as I would have liked because I never got into what was the Breaking Bad? I kind of lost interest in the second or third season. I heard that's the low point. If you get through that, it's an outstanding show, but I couldn't make it through. But Saul hadn't really come on yet, but I have watched some Better Call Saul on Netflix. But that's not my go-tos for legal shows or Law and Order. That's the classic, the Sam Watterson, Jack McCoy.
The originals, yeah.
Yeah.
So how close legality wise is that? As far as the court proceedings and all that, that's what my question is. Because some of these shows, I was told through Andrew Penny, our friend, he's like, dude, Better Call Saul is pretty close to how.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
is.
I think it's a cynical view, and I would say Law and Order. What I like about it, I mean, because you could never get a whole case in an hour, but what I like about it is sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. It's not Matlock where he pulls off something nobody saw coming at the 55th minute of the show. I don't like that. I like to see people that should win and they end up losing. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's maybe I just like weird. Like I was
saying, real life though.
Yeah. But those are kind of my favorites. Do you have any HGTV shows? Do you sit back and like, I want to watch these? I want to watch these kind of people buy a house or something along those lines.
Man, I very rarely watch HGTV anymore. It's like I deal with it on a daily basis, and I know how it's especially with these renovation shows, because I've done so many renovations that I just don't understand. Some of the pricing just doesn't make sense to me. Like, oh, we got in and out of this house, and we only spent $40,000. I'm like, you gutted the whole house, and I'm like, some of the pricing doesn't make sense. And,
yeah, because you're mentioning, I guess, a lot of these things being foregone conclusions. Like the way it's presented, it's like, oh, we've encountered an unforeseen obstacle and it's going to be an extra $40,000. Like, oh, shucks, what are we going to do? I mean, you think that'd be like a really upsetting situation if you were seeing it in real time, like when they really find that out on the front end.
Yeah, there's both spectrums of that. The underprice, and then they'll run into a repair where they blow it out of proportion. And you're like, what? How did that? I can fix that in 2 seconds. It's not a big deal, or the sky's falling because of it.
Yeah, and that takes kind of an interesting type person. It's like, you know what? Let's talk to HG and see if they'll produce a recreation of when we lost a bunch of money on that rental property. I mean,
they never show those.
No, they don't. Well, Travis, we're about out of time today. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Could you tell everybody where to find you if they need a real estate agent?
Yes, I work for Remax Essential here in Wilmington, and again, you can Google search my name. It's Travis Beatty and Remax Essential, and all my information pops up. So, got any real estate questions, especially regarding investment properties or properties at the coastal area, please let me know.
All right, thanks a lot, man.